What makes the backrooms so scary? I think the answer to that question is found within the human nature. And that answer is that we tend to try to find an explanation to everything. And that simply cannot be applied to the backrooms. You see, the backrooms have no rhyme or reason, and as shown by the movie, they just simply exist. Hello everybody, my name is Asura and today I'll be discussing the movie Backrooms, what I really enjoyed about it, as well as some things that were not the best. Towards the end I'll be adding my own theories on some things that were left to be interpreted by the movie, as well as giving the movie a rating out of 10 at the end. One thing that I want to mention is that this video will be full of spoilers, so if you are interested in this movie, I would first recommend watching it, and if you are interested in an in-depth
And we're
discussion
rolling.
about it, to come back and watch it.
All right, you
Thank
ready?
you for watching, and if by the
I
end
think
of the
so.
video you enjoyed your
All
time
right,
hearing me
you
rant
mic
about it,
already in?
please don't forget to
Yeah,
subscribe.
I know.
The first key thing I would like to discuss about the movie is one of the core elements of liminal horror, and that is traffic. Traffic, and to be
Okay.
exact, the lack of it, is one of the
Testing.
most
One, two, one,
important
two.
parts when
Mic
it
check.
comes to
This is
liminal
Nini.
horror, and the
Can you hear
Backrooms
me?
movies execute this to perfection.
Loud and clear.
Besides for specific scenes that I will be talking about later on a bit, there is a major lack of traffic in this movie. Leaving aside the async VHS step that we start with, and starting with the scene of Clark inside his
Yeah.
own store, Captain
What's the
Clark's
rush
Ottoman
anyway?
Empire, which in my opinion is the actual start of the movie, where he films his own ad for the store.
Yeah.
We are hit with a major lack of traffic in a place where there should be one. We are in this big furniture store
So
with
I guess we're gonna be
almost no
recording
walls
from
that technically speaking should at least have a few
Yeah.
customers.
Dave's been very vocal
Instead,
about that.
besides
Didn't
Clark
have
and
that other
his
group
so-called
where he was
filming crew,
watching the movie
the
the whole
whole
time.
place is empty, setting the mood for the
I got
whole
no
movie and giving
information
you
as to why
that
I'm
feeling
recording,
of
but Sal
pure
told me it's very
discomfort that will
important to
be
keep the
ever
camera
present
on and
throughout the
just
movie.
not stop.
One other thing that I would like to
I
add
know
here
these
is
days a lot of
that
things super
throughout the
serious.
whole movie, Clark does not get one single customer through this whole period that this movie takes place in, which we can assume by the different elements of it, at least a couple of weeks. The only people that actually visit the store are the two employees he has, the electrician and maid Mary later on because Clark seems to have been gone missing. So, like mentioned, this whole movie has a big lack of traffic. Kane also seems to try to steer from places or scenes in general which would involve traffic. Even when he visits Mary for counseling, there are no other people there coming
So
in
who's
or
reading out the
going out.
controls?
When he comes close to his old
Dane
house,
and Greg
no
are waiting down
traffic. The
there.
store's
Looking
parking
for
lot,
it, but I'm
once
not
again,
completely
no
sure.
traffic.
I kind of doubt we're gonna need any more
Now,
help,
for the people
but
that actually
I don't
watch
mind.
the movie, you'd be something like,
I guess
you are
you're
totally wrong.
muted.
There are
I guess
definitely scenes with
necessary.
traffic in this movie.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, but actually no. What do I mean by that? You see, even in those moments where we have the smallest representation of traffic, we are giving this idea that traffic is not good at all. The first example of this is Mary's gathering.
What are you?
During the scene, Mary is full of
Right on my
anxiety
phone.
in a place where there are a lot of people, and
Not bad.
towards the end of the scene, Mary is doing her total best to get away from this situation.
They
Another
also
great
said that
example
one
of
of us
the
might
idea
need
that the
to
movie is
actually go
trying to
through the little
impose on
graph down
us
there
that
as well.
traffic is bad
So if any
is
one of us
another
needs to
scene
go,
where
I would still
Mary
do
is
this.
present, where they destroy her
Why
old
reference
childhood
me?
home alongside the imprint
Well,
she
because
left
you
in
have one of those
concrete.
cameras.
Even
We have
the
lights on them
remaining two
too.
other
Just
scenes,
could.
the
So
meal
now you
the
don't have to go
Asing
down there
guy
anyway.
has with his family is off. We don't see the
Yeah,
family's
I don't like it.
faces. The whole scene just feels off. The last scene where we have the idea of traffic is the one towards the ending where Mary gets saved. Although saved is not quite the right word here, to be honest, where a lot
Okay.
of facing people
David,
are present,
Mike,
but
and
once
you
again, we are still not
recording?
feeling safe. Second thing
Yeah, we
that I
have
would
some
like to
issues with the
discuss about the
computer.
movie, and
Yeah,
one
well,
thing
you
that
work
I
with me.
noticed that people have not really talked about, is the way
We
it
can just
was
sit up.
filmed
I'm
and
gonna
how
put you here.
surreal it feels. It's a somewhat hard thing to explain, but best example for this would be those times where
Hey,
you've
just
been
go
up
straight
for
up.
so long, let's say more than 24 hours, where
I know I
the
should
night
have
has just
controlled this thing
passed,
before.
morning
Oh,
sun
this
is
is
high
fresh.
above, and the
Don't get the hang of it.
sunlight feels too strong,
Okay,
but
you should
at
have
the
control
same
now.
time somewhat faded, giving you this weird surreal feeling inside you, almost like a dream, but not really. One other example for this, personally, for me, were those moments as a kid where things seemed off. Once again, some things seem weird, the light is off, the vibes are also off, the colors are not as full, and pretty much it feels like a dream, but it's clearly reality. I know this one is a shot in the dark, and I might be the only one that experienced this in their childhood, but it's something that reminds me of the way this movie makes me feel. This element of the movie is one of the great things I really enjoyed about it, and what adds to the horror element of it, making you not feel safe even outside of the backrooms. Now, having those two things exposed before us, I want to talk about the final element that I particularly liked about the movie, and that is the absolute discomfort this movie makes you feel. You see, in my opinion, horror movies want you to take the role of the characters to better instill in you their own fear. That's why I think found footage, which is my favorite type of horror movies, are doing such a great job when it comes to that, and that is mainly because you are seeing the movie from their point of view,
Wait,
so
what?
that makes it
Is this
easier for you
supposed
to
to
put
be
yourself in their
flamethrower?
own shoes.
No,
And for
I just go
that,
get it.
horror
I
movies
remember the
follow a
name,
pretty
so.
common formula like
You sure?
80% of the time.
Yeah,
And
of course.
that formula is that at the
You
start
know,
of the
it's not that
movie,
far. I'll
we
just
have a
go get
fairly
it, bring
safe
it back.
environment, the
No big
characters
deal.
are safe, and we are not yet on edge because we are not yet aware of what is going to happen. Then, of course, the bad things start to take place, and we have the bulk of the movie where we are in full discomfort. And at the end, depending on what kind of ending they choose to go with, happy, we again have moments where we feel safe again. Or if it's a so-called bad ending, we feel the discomfort until the end. A great example of this would be the Conjuring movies, where they kind of all go the same. We have a family that they are in a somewhat safe environment, then the haunting starts. We
How's it
start to
going
feel
down
their
there?
fear, their discomfort with the whole
It's going fine.
situation.
I'm just
The Warrens
trying to
come
remember
in,
where
a
I
bunch
went.
of stuff happen, they save the day at the end, and once again we start to feel safe alongside the characters. The backrooms do not follow this formula at
It
all.
feels kind of weird being
From
in
the
this
start of
part.
the movie, we are in
And it's
full
just no
discomfort
one's ever been
and
here before.
unsafety. We are
Uh,
thrown in directly in the backrooms where its
I
famous
understand.
buzzing
It's
sound
pretty cool.
starts playing
okay, what do we need
alongside
from
the
here?
async employee that seems lost and
Wait,
separated from his own team.
the
Also,
rover,
making sure that
it's
right
gone.
from the start we are
It's right
immersed
here.
in this whole thing by it being
Wait,
filmed from
what?
his own
Are you
point of
sure
view
you
as
didn't want to
found
play it?
footage. Then he gets attacked by
Yeah,
the
it's the right
entity.
place, but
Also important
it's
here, giving
definitely
us
not
the
here.
idea that the backrooms are not safe.
That that makes
And
some
after
sense.
this, we are with Clark filming his own ad. But knowing this
Hold
now,
on.
you would be
I'm
like,
gonna go a little bit
okay,
further.
the movie does not follow the norm. But
Yeah, just
surely
come
it's
back.
still within the
We'll
same
figure it out.
realm, since after the VHS tape, we see we are
No, I,
back
I
in the
can I can
real
find it, but
world, so we should feel
I
safe,
mean they have to
right?
be here. There's no way to
Actually, no.
just
Because
disappear.
of the things that I already mentioned, the surrealism and the lack of
Alright,
traffic,
just be quick.
even in the following scene, we do not feel fully safe. It all starts with Clark's ad in this huge empty store where the feeling of discomfort is present, although not yet fully settled, and it gets worse and worse with every scene. For example, Mary's childhood home getting destroyed,
What the
discomfort.
hell?
Mary's session with Clark about his personal problems, absolute discomfort, especially thinking about how this should be something confidential that we shouldn't be part of. Clark alone in the store
Greg,
during the night,
Greg, do you feel that?
discomfort. Clark exploring the
I think
backrooms for
there's
the
an
first
earthquake
time,
going on.
clear discomfort. gathering where Mary is present, the discussion of the rooms with
Anything
Clark and
shaky,
Mary,
eh?
Clark
Can't
finding
feel
his
that.
own employees, exploring the backrooms with them, Mary's scenes where she's mostly alone, the flashbacks with her mom, finding Clark in the backrooms, the discussion they have at the table, the chase with the entity.
Mm.
Absolute discomfort. We are not safe one moment throughout this movie. Not even when she gets saved. We do not feel safe. I think do not feel like the good guys here. And to make sure that we know that, to fully let our desperation set in, Mary asks the question we kept asking ourselves. What is going to happen to me? And the async employee simply answers, I don't know. That's it. Even at the end of it all, when we thought there might be a slight chance of safety, of comfort,
Guys,
Kane's
can
backrooms
can you
just
hear me?
drag us back into the pits
Is
of
anyone
despair.
talking? Please.
Those three elements are what really made me enjoy this movie, what I think the movie did the
Hello.
best, and what really impressed me. They work
How the
perfectly
fuck
with
did that even
each
happen?
other, they complement each other, and make this a very enjoyable experience. Now, that is not to say that there are not really good other things. I just find those three elements the best. Of course, there are some other really good stuff about the movie, such as the sound, the set itself with the props, the back rooms themselves, and so on, which I will definitely talk about in the following moments, and maybe some other things that did not shine as the rest of the movie, such as the script. Now, that being said, let's talk about those things and let's start with sound. The sound in the movie is gorgeous, and it was the first thing that I noticed while watching the movie in the cinema, and it was the first thing I told my friend that I enjoyed after the movie finishing. The movie starts with that clear, distinct sound of the backrooms that is well known if you are aware of the concept before. The buzzing sound of the neon lighting, which, to be honest, it always made me feel weird, even when I was a kid, especially since I live in an apartment building and remember returning back home during the night and hearing that sound, it always made me look behind me. Anyway, moving forward with the idea of sound in mind, I really enjoyed the sound effects that were used, especially the ones where he first stumbles upon the backrooms. I also quite enjoy the music they play sparingly. Normally, personally speaking, I do not like the horror music they play during tense moments. Most of the times it's not used correctly and it takes away from the moment of tension. But in this case, like mentioned, it was used very sparingly and what feels like just the right moments. Let's talk about the setting or how the backrooms looked alongside the outside world as well. This topic has been somewhat debated online, and mostly there were two sides here. One who thought that the backrooms themselves looked amazing, which I'm a part of, and the other side where they thought it sucked simply because they were not what they expected, and they mostly gave example of the backrooms with levels, the one where it's practically SCP inspired, or the ones from the so-called games that are on Roblox. These people probably wanted the movie to be like the one where Kanye West chases you. I think these people are not to be taken serious. They are just brain rotted and probably watch the movie with their brains turned off. Nonetheless, the backrooms themselves looked amazing. They are practically like the one from his own YouTube series, but with an actual budget, and instead of using the trick from Blender with the VHS filter on, we just have them in full clean display. Some particular places that I really enjoyed were the room where the entity was hoarding a bunch of stuff. Also want to know that when I noticed what this room was, I instantly knew they were absolutely cooked. We also have the red Christmas tree room, which was terrifying alongside the notorious pool rooms, on which I have to mention here the scene where the entity picks up the camera and films Clark, which was also one of my favorite moments. But my favorite part of the Backrooms is when Mary is getting chased by the entity and she comes to this big room where there is a huge gap in the middle with practically no end to its depth, and alongside to it the walls there are a bunch of rooms, practically like seeing a huge apartment building from the inside. The outside part as well is great, like mentioned before, the liminality persists even outside the back rooms, which also adds to the movie and that feeling of discomfort. Like I mentioned before, a good part of this is Clark's store, which is huge, and besides the building own walls, inside there are practically no aisles, no shelves, no smaller walls to delimit space, just furniture placed all around, making it feel very odd and not like an unusual furniture store, which adds more to the movie's charm. Other good scenes are Mary's childhood home from inside, the async employees dinner scene, where again, because of the way it was filmed and directed, feels off and adds again to that feeling of discomfort. When it comes to the story, I would like to point out that although it is not bad, it's quite good actually, but it is definitely the weakest point alongside the script. It definitely has its moments where it falls short, and the script is also not it at moments. The story follows Clark, who recently ended his relationship with his wife due to ongoing issues they had, which boiled to one big fight they had when Clark returned drunk home. The fight was about how Clark is the only one that works, she's finishing her studies, and is practically the only money bringer in the household, making things quite difficult for him. Now, I have to mention here, one thing I quite find funny is that because throughout the movie, not one customer comes into his store. I'm pretty sure that he has not sold one piece of furniture in at least the past 6 months. And I was thinking at this point, what money are you bringing, brother? I'm pretty sure that the story is making you lose a lot of money instead. Anyway, that aside, because of this fight and the breakup, Clark realizes he has some problems like anger issues, drinking problems, not managing to connect with others, and many other things that he needs fixing, so he goes to therapy to Mary, who is practically kind of our main character alongside Clark. The therapy does not seem to help Clark at all, and the problems Clark has persist throughout the movie. Mary is not the most mentally fit person either. We see later on in different scenes that because of her tough childhood, where her insane mother keeps her and herself locked up in the house for most of her early ages before being locked up in some kind of asylum, which leads to Mary having anxiety problems, connecting with people, alongside practically not being able to be herself and opening up to others, which most likely led to her trying to help others. Moving forward, we see that Clark lives inside his own store, and sometimes during the night the lights flicker even though the electricity is turned off, his TV turns off, and this has been going for a while, and not even an electrician can fix this. So he goes to the fuse box and tries to fix it, and while returning back, he noticed this weird vertical line that at a certain angle from the wall, some light comes off. He presses his hand on the wall and he stumbles in the back rooms. From here, he explores them a bit, then he goes to Mary, where the best word to use here is tries to explain the back rooms because the concept is pretty hard to grasp to begin with. And of course, while Mary does not outright call him crazy, does not fully trust what he saw. After this, Clark gets his two employees, mind you, without telling them anything at all what they are going to do, and he explores the back rooms with them. They practically stumble on what it is, in my opinion, the home of the entity by the looks of it, and one of the employees, Bobby, gets dragged by it, and his girlfriend Clark try to save him, and they are not able to. Clark and the girl start getting chased by the entity and some other things in the back rooms, and the whole sequence ends with the entity filming Clark while it catches him. So far, really great, really enjoyed it, loved the character interaction, loved how, even like mentioned, we are kind of on edge throughout the whole movies because of the different elements I talked about. But after this, the story falls off a bit. After the entity catches Clark, we follow Mary and we see her past, childhood traumas, and so on. But what I don't enjoy that much is that here the stories try to be a bit too ambiguous, too mystery driven, in my opinion, and we also focus too much on this part as well. Anyway, after a while, Mary seeing Clark practically went missing. He goes to his store and remembering his stories. She goes into the back rooms as well. Clark kind of attacks her. He catches her before the entity, and they go to this room, which we could assume is a copy of his old house kitchen, where he ties Mary, and once again, here is where the script and story fall a bit. They have this conversation about what the backrooms are, Clark's problems, and her practically saying he's refusing to take responsibility for his own shortcomings, alongside Clark accepting this and saying he likes the backrooms and he would like to stay here. What I did not like about this part of the story is that Clark comes up as absolutely crazy, and although we are shown that at least a week has passed since he's in the back rooms, we were simply not part of that, and this great change of character feels off to us. Instead of focusing so much on Mary, I think we should have at least allocated 5 to 10 minutes of what happened with Clark in the back rooms. Not a lot of things. Maybe him having the camera of his two employees and seeing the gradual steps in which he started going crazier and crazier. But instead, we have this conversation between the two with quite honestly not the best lines. I think it could have been executed better, in my opinion. And also, although in general throughout the movie we still keep the mystery of what the backrooms are, I feel like too much explanation took place during the scene, especially where they show what the copied humans are made of. I personally would have liked a bit less of that, but I could understand why it was done because online people were confused even with what the movie shown and implied, but even less than that, I think the internet would have been totally lost. Moving forward, after Clark's enlightenment, let's call it, the entity comes to them, and it seems that during this time, Clark kinda befriended it. He tries to discuss with it, but the entity, who I forgot to mention at this point looks like Clark in the Captain Clark outfit, picks him up and takes a bite out of him, which looks like Saturn devouring his sun painting, which is an awesome reference. This scene also falls short for me. I feel like the scariest parts of the movies were when we couldn't see directly what was hunting them. Here we just see it in full, What I would have changed here is maybe the entity stays at the entrance where we could barely see it and maybe grabs Clark, and it would have been filmed a bit more obscure. After this, Mary runs, she's getting chased by the entity who looks like Clark. We see more of the back rooms, and towards the end, she stumbles upon async explorers who, for a better word, save her and get her out. Next scene is with an employee of Async who tries to find more info out of her, and we are let know that Mary's futures is unknown, and it ends with a shot of the back rooms, which show a copy of Mary. Overall, the story is quite alright. I would even call it good. It just has these moments where it falls short, and with a bit of change, I think it would have been much better. I think the movie did the best when the monsters were obscured, when they were just at the edge of our vision rather than out in the open, but nonetheless, overall, the story was quite enjoyable. The last part I want to talk about are theories. First one is, what are the backrooms? And this one is quite complicated and at the
It's not.
same time not really. The simple answer is that we don't know yet. The backrooms seem like this place who sometimes leaks into reality, that once you enter it's using your own memories to copy things that are deeply connected to you, and sometimes even yourself, but because memories are not perfect, these things do not get copied correctly. That's why we have furniture that looks weird, stuck in walls, the floor and rooms that make no sense. More than that is simply not known. Even the async people have no more knowledge than this as shown in the movie. Now, in Ken's YouTube series, we have a bit more details about this, but since we talk exclusively about the movie, I will not touch on that. Second theory I would like to talk about, which is connected directly to the movie, is why did the entity copy Clark himself? This one is also quite hard to look into and it's quite speculative at this point. You have to understand that even in Kane's series, the entity never copies anybody, it has its own form, so this is something new. For me, there are two possibilities. One is that because of Clark's craziness, it somehow formed the bond between each other. After all, we see that he initially survived its first attack and somehow befriended it a bit. So, because of that, it is possible the entity formed a connection with Clark, so he chose to copy him. The other explanation is much simpler. Considering the nature of the backrooms copying things, it is possible the entity copies the person that stayed the most in the backrooms and it's using that to its own advantage. After all, what is the most uncanny thing that being chased by yourself? The last theory I want to talk about is a theory that I came up with and have not seen anyone talk about, and that is, I think Mary and her mom have been in the backrooms before, or at least her mom has been in it. Now, stay with me. I know this one is a big stretch and I might be totally wrong here. Why I have this theory is because throughout the movie we see that Mary's mom is very adamant in staying in one place and she's really afraid of going out. Or or maybe going through doors slash windows and even maybe walls. We are never given a reason for Mary's mom craziness, so I think when Mary was really young, her mom has visited the backrooms, and that has traumatized her so much that she just simply wants to stay in one place than risking once again finding herself in the backrooms. The other thing that can back this theory is that after we are being shown her childhood home from inside, we have this sequence where we are shown a backrooms version of it, which starts to constantly change shot after shot, like it's being forgotten as time passes by until it's almost not recognizable anymore. Now, to be honest, this scene could also mean nothing, and it could have been put there simply because, mostly for aesthetics. But what makes me believe in this theory is that Kane rarely does things without substance or meaning. That's all I wanted to talk about. I definitely think this movie was great from all the things that I mentioned, and I think it has earned a 9 out of 10. I'll probably watch it at least a few more times and can't wait for Kane's next project. To anyone who actually hears this, thank you for watching. I know this is quite literally my first ever YouTube video. If by any chance somebody actually watched it in full, thank you a lot. But I highly doubt it, to be honest. Most likely this video is going to have one viewer and that would be me.